Good morning, everybody, and welcome today to our class on adding and editing timeline information. We're going to be talking about the information that you enter on Bloomerang's timeline for your constituents. What happens is this is where all of the financial information goes. This is also a place to keep track of any contacts or any attendance from events or things like that that they do. It's sort of like a history of what they do, not only monetarily, but also what they do with your organization, such as something personal like attending an event or volunteering or something like that. So I'm real excited to be sharing that with you. So here we are on the Bloomerang Dashboard, and what we're going to do today is look up one of my constituents, and we're going to go through all of the different things that you can add onto the timeline. Now, those of you that maybe have taken the constituent class, which is about adding and editing constituent information, saw that what we do there is this is where we would keep track of personal information about your constituents. Names, addresses, phone numbers, emails, personal fields that talk about things like, are they a board member? Are they, part of a different club or committee or something like that? All the information that pertains to them, we enter in what we call the constituent information. But once we have that constituent established, now the goal is to start cultivating them and hopefully get them to become a recurring donor with us here at your organization. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the search section on the second icon down, and I'm going to go ahead and select that, which is constituents. And then I'm going to come up here in the search area, and I'm going to search for Peter Parker this morning. Peter's going to be our subject today, so we're going to go ahead and select Peter. And what we have here, you can see that there he is, so I'm going to go ahead and select him. And once we have selected Peter, you can see that it brings us to our summary screen for this constituent. Now, Peter is brand new. He's somebody that I've just found out about, and I've just gotten him into the database as a constituent, but he really hasn't done anything yet. You can see that his giving summary is showing that there's been no activity. And also what I want to point out over here by his engagement level, this is something that I think is kind of unique to Bloomerang as to how involved this person is with your organization. Now, does this mean that they give, frequently that makes them, a very engaged person? Maybe they don't give as often, but they attend a lot of events that you have, or they're one of your volunteers who maybe, like I say, financially can't support you, but they certainly do with their time, and that's just as important, and you want to make sure that you're seeing how engaged they are with your group. Now, everything that we're going to do today, in most cases, will affect this engagement level. And we're going to come back and visit Peter's engagement level at the end of the class because we'll see some movement here. But what I want you to notice here is that there are different items. Right now, he's setting it cold because, like I said, nothing's happening with Peter at all. But you can see that this will move as things start to happen. He'll start to warm up a little bit. It goes from cool to warm to hot, and then, oh yeah, all the way on fire for somebody who is really active and really engaged with your group. So like I said, we're going to come back and look at this at the end of the class so that you can see how everything we do with Peter's account today affects this engagement level. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and click this down arrow, this big blue down arrow right up here. So once you've looked for Peter, you can come here and see that there is quite a list of items that we can do from here. Now, the new donation all the way down to the new note are the items that we're going to talk about today. New relationships was something that's discussed in the adding and editing constituent class. So if you need to grab that class to learn some more about relationships, that's the one that you would want to take. But everything else on this list we're going to talk about. We're going to start off real easy this morning. We're just going to enter a new donation so you can see how that goes. And we're also going to talk about the different fields that you see on this screen because a lot of these fields are the same depending on what type of transaction it is. Now, what happens here is you can see that it defaults to today's date. So again, this isn't carved in stone. If let's say that you were, this is a short week for most of us, and let's say we were off Monday, and I'm just now getting around to getting caught up to entering my donations, and I'm just now entering donations that maybe did come in on Monday or Tuesday. So if I need to change this date, I can certainly do that. I can backdate this to whatever I want it to be, but do know that it defaults to today's date. So make note of that because It will change. It'll be today's date if you save it unless you change it, okay? Now, once you come down here to the amount, this is obviously the amount of the donation that this person actually gave. So I'm going to say Peter gave us a nice gift today of $250. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter that in. Now, the next thing we have is the non-deductible field. Now, non-deductible, going to hear a lot about that probably this time of year when it's tax time. That non-deductible is the portion of this contribution that Peter couldn't claim on his taxes. Like if he's filling out his taxes and he's going to say that he gave, $200 or $250 to this organization, let's say that 50 of this is going toward maybe he gets a premium for it, like maybe a t-shirt or a book or a video or something like that. Or maybe he receives a ticket. He's buying a couple of tickets for $25 a piece, but the rest of this is going to be the donation. Anyway, whatever portion of this donation where he's receiving something and can't claim it on his taxes would go under non-deductible. Okay, and also just to let you know that when you're doing any kind of tax letter or anything like that, you can differentiate, you can merge these fields onto that letter so you can show non-deductible portions on the letter of their tax letter that they're getting. Now, the next thing we have, the next three fields, I kind of like to talk to them as a group, which is fund, campaign, and appeal. I really think these are three of the best fields on the transaction screen because they will really help you do some great reporting in your organization. Now, the fund is where does the money go? A lot of you probably have an unrestricted fund or a general fund that you use for gifts that just come in. Maybe you say, maybe your fund is named the greatest need or something like that. It's sort of a standard fund where if you're not really sure, like if somebody just sends you a gift and they don't really care where it goes, you might want to stick it in your general or unrestricted fund. But if you have some other funds, you can see that I have some funds here that have special projects or special programs that are going on. So I can determine where does this gift go. So let's say that Peter has noted that he wants this gift to go to the Sophie McIver Scholarship Fund. So we're going to go ahead and select that fund for this particular gift. So again, for accounting purposes, this usually is something that your accounting department would like to know about because this is where they will keep track of what is in each different fund. Usually there's a GL account associated with these funds. Now, the next field we have is campaign. Now, this being early in the new year, a lot of you probably last fall started having meetings and budget meetings in your organization about how much money do we need to raise in the development department to meet the goals of the organization. So maybe that you were given a particular goal of, we need to raise $500,000 this year in order to meet the goal of all of the needs that we have for our organization. So usually that then would become something like a capital campaign or an annual campaign. So again, if you have a goal in mind, like you're raising money for a particular program or project, or it's just going to be the total amount of money that you're raising all year, you probably want to create a campaign so that you can see how you're doing on your goal. Now, I have a brand new campaign here for 2020, and I've set a goal for this particular campaign, and I want Peter's $250 to count toward that 2020 annual campaign goal that I have. So like I said, this is kind of a broad umbrella. You can have one goal for the annual campaign, but you may have gifts going to multiple funds, but you still want them to count toward that one campaign. So that's why I think this is kind of an important thing to have, just so you can see how you're doing. And there's a way on the main screen of Bloomerang on the dashboard that you can see how your campaign is going. So it's really kind of nice to have that and utilize it if you haven't in the past. Now, the next thing we have is the appeal. Now, I also think the appeal is very important because most of the time, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my window of choices here, the appeal is usually telling you, what did this person do or what did you do that caused this person to give you the gift? Why at this point in time did this donation come in? So you can see that some of my examples here in appeal are either events or certain mailings that they received, or maybe it's just unsolicited. We have no idea why he decided to send us a gift. He just out of the blue, we got a check from this person. So again, you can select what was the mechanism that caused him to give you this particular gift. And I'm going to say it was a personal solicitation. Someone actually was talking to him about the organization and he gave the gift. So we're going to call it personal solicitation. Now, the nice thing about, again, the appeals, the campaigns, and the funds, you can do transaction reports in Bloomerang and group them by these different types of fields. So I could say I want to see all the transactions to the scholarship fund. Then it would show all the transactions to the building fund. You can do it that way. Or you could say I want to see it by campaign. I want to see all of 2020's annual campaign. I then want to see all of 2019's annual campaign, and also the same with the appeal. So I think, like I said, these are fairly easy to maintain and to set up. You set them up under our settings area here, which is the last icon over here. And you can deactivate them if the list gets too long or whatever, but you are certainly able to add to these as life goes on and years move forward and you have new appeals and new campaigns and even new funds that you start raising money for. All right. Now, the next thing we have is the method, and this is simply, how did they pay for it? How did he send me this $250? Was it cash? If it is, you would just click cash. Was it a check? You know, did he send you a check? And notice that if I select check, that some new fields open up here. I now have a check number and a check date. So if I'm interested in recording that and keeping that, I can. Some people even sometimes in the note area here would put the bank that it came from if they really wanted to. But also, we also have credit card, as you can see. So if I click on credit card, you can see that it's asking me for what credit card processor I want to use. This would be the situation where, let's say that he gave us a credit card number. Maybe it was like a slip that he filled out and wrote his credit card information on there. And I'm going to process the credit card right now. I could go ahead and write this card number here. Now, I'm not going to do this because I don't have a sample credit card to use here, but that's what you would do. Now, what you can also see here is that if he has, maybe this is a gift that already came in, it's already been processed, and you just want to log it into the database. Maybe you didn't have your website hooked up yet and it didn't come in, and you just want to set it up and show that it was a credit card, but Bloomerang didn't process the credit card. Then you can go ahead and set it to that as well. We also have electronic funds transfer. So those of you that have people that have gifts that come in, recurring gifts use electronic funds transfers quite a bit. So you could, again, do not process, or you could have a processor set up that will be able to process your EFTs for you. And then also we have in-kind donations. A lot of folks accept in-kind donations. Now, one thing I want to say for those of you that do in-kind donations, notice that up here, you know, we put $250 in as Peter's gift. But if this is truly an in-kind donation, what you would want to do is make this donation a 0. Not blank, but a 0. And then what you would do is put the amount of the gift. Let's say that it was a goods that he maybe donated an old computer or something, and the fair market value of that old computer is $250. That way it'll keep your in-kind information separate from your actual monetary transactions that come in. But again, I've seen people do it both ways, so it's certainly up to you how you want to do it. But do know that when you select in-kind, you get type, which is either goods or service. You get the fair market value, and then you can put in the actual description of what that in-kind donation was. But I'm going to say that this gift that Peter gave us today is just a check, and I'm just going to go in and type in a really easy check number here, and I'm going to say that the date of his check was on, let's say, Monday. And so there you go. That's all you would need to do on this side. Notice that no matter what you're doing on this transaction, there's always going to be this note screen here. So if there's something that you want to put there, that would be terrific. Anything that further describes the gift, you can certainly put that in there. Also, then you can see if we move to the right-hand side of the screen, we have several options here as well. Soft credit tributes, acknowledgments, and attachments. Now, soft credits are, again, something that a lot of us may use. Soft credits are where maybe someone has been instrumental in getting Peter to give us this gift. So we want to give that person some credit. Even though he didn't actually give the $250, we know that without his talking to Peter, we wouldn't have gotten that gift. So we want to soft credit him. A lot of times people will use soft credits as well for, let's say, United Way. A lot of times United Way will send you a check and it'll tell who the people are, but the check is actually from United Way. So you would be able to use soft credits to break that out to the actual donors if you wanted to do it that way. Another good example of a soft credit is when you have a person who owns a business, but they also have their own personal donation information. So let's say, for example, Peter owns a company, but this is his individual giving account. Out of his personal checking account, he gave us $250. But if his organization gave us from the organization's checking account, let's say they gave us $5,000, well, again, it's Peter's influence that's getting us this gift. So I might want to soft credit that $5,000 back to Peter so that we can tell that he was instrumental in that gift coming in as well. But let's say in this case that I know that, again, this was a personal solicitation, and I happen to know that one of our active members has been talking to Pete about this organization, and he wants to make sure that, or I want to make sure that this person is acknowledged for this. So I'm going to click here on the plus sign, and I'm just going to go in and search, and I'm going to search, whoops, here we go. I'm going to search for, let's see, Tony Stark. There we go. We're going to take Tony here. And you can see that the soft credit amount comes up here, and it lets me soft credit up to $250. So maybe I'm only going to say, I'm only going to give him credit for $100 of this. But, if I want to soft credit Tony, then that's all you do. You search for their account. You saw how that happened. You type in the amount, and then you click Update. And now you can see that Tony is here listed on the soft credit. And if you ever need to come back and edit this, you can see that you can change the amount or you could remove it if you needed to do that. Now, you can also have more than one soft credit. Let's say that Tony wanted only $100 and the other $150 is going to somebody else. You can do that by clicking the plus sign again. But again, it can't exceed the amount of the $250. Now, next thing we have is tribute. A lot of us do tributes. Tributes are in honor of or in memory of someone. These are set up also down here under our settings area. And you can set up whether they are to be memorialized or honored. And I'm going to say that in this case that Peter does want this gift to also be in memory of Sophie, who the scholarship fund is named after. So I'm going to go up here and click the plus sign. And just like we did for the soft credit person, I'm just going to search for the tribute. So once I search for Sophie, you can see there she is. And I'm going to go ahead and click her name. And now you can see she is showing up in memory of Sophie McIver. So now, not only is he giving to the scholarship that was named after her, but he wants this to be a tribute in her memory. And we're giving soft credit to Tony Stark for this gift. Now, the next thing we see down here are acknowledgments. Now, as you all know, Bloomerang has the ability to go in and create and process thank you letters. As those letters are processed out of Bloomerang, Bloomerang will come back and flip this acknowledgement flag to yes for you automatically. So as you're entering your donations, if you intend for Bloomerang, you're going to leave here and then go over and process your thank you letters, then you would leave this at no. Nope, hasn't been acknowledged yet, but once Bloomerang runs through and processes the letter, it automatically comes back and flips this to yes. Now, you can manually flip this to yes if this is something that you know that maybe someone already sent a special letter to them. You can still type here, yes, it was acknowledged, and you could put a note down here that says it was sent by someone else in the organization, the letter's already been received or something like that. Now, the good news is when Bloomerang does it, it also attaches a copy of the letter onto the interaction, and we're going to talk about interactions here pretty soon. So again, acknowledged is yes, and then we also have another choice here, do not acknowledge. Now, this would be where somebody has said, hey, you don't have to acknowledge me for these gifts. Maybe they're an anonymous person, or they just don't want to be, you don't have to do that, save a stamp, you don't have to mail me a thank you. So you can change these manually, but the default is no, because the idea is you're going to have Bloomerang do the letter for you, and then it's going to flip it for you automatically back to yes. Okay? So that's what our acknowledgement status is. Now, lastly, we have an attachment here. If you have any forms that you would like to attach to this donation for whatever reason, you can do so. You would click the plus sign here, and you would go add file. It's going to then search your computer for the file. You would simply click to attach it, and then it would be stored as an attachment within Bloomerang. Okay? Now, these are all of the fields that you have for adding a donation, and also they also appear on pledges. They appear on recurring donations. Any other type of donation that we're going to do, you're going to see these same fields. But also, you can see if you come down a little bit further, any custom fields that you have designated to be appearing on the transaction screen will also show up here. So again, these are just some custom fields that I have created that I want to show up on the transaction screen because there may be more information about the transaction that I need. And you can see I've created some event fields here, a letter type. Maybe I have several letters that I send out, and I want to make sure that I know which one he's going to get. So again, these are just some general custom fields that I have that you can also set up if you have any on your transactions that you need to know additional information. Okay, so we're all done here, so I'm going to go ahead and click Save. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about are pledges. So we're going to go up here and we're going to click the down arrow, and I'm going to do a pledge. Now, you know, some people love pledges, some people don't. A lot of maintenance involved in pledges. People get behind and all sorts of things like that. But we do have a good way of tracking that for you. So if I wanted to go in and set up a new pledge for Peter, what I would do is, again, it defaults to today's date. Let's say Peter gave that $250 and he's very excited about it. And now he's decided he wants to make a little longer term commitment to us. So let's say that he's going to go in and say that he wants to make a pledge for $2,000. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Notice again, the non-deductible shows up. The fund shows up. He's going to give to the endowment fund. Again, I'm going to count this toward my 2020 annual campaign. And also, the appeal is, again, unsolicited. He did this on his own. You know, we didn't even ask him for this. So that's the unsolicited. Now, here is the auto payment method. How is he going to pay for his pledge? Is he going to send us a check every month? Or did he give you a credit card so that you could just automatically take the payment off of the credit card? So again, just like before, you would click credit card and you would fill out this information here about the credit card. Notice that it says payments will start processing based on the installment schedule. So when we tell it when that first payment starts, that's when it'll start taking payments, okay? But if he's going to do it by way of check, you would just click none, and maybe you could put in the note, plans to send a check or something like that. So you could put that in there as well. Now, also, same thing, we can do a soft credit to this. We can do a tribute, and again, the acknowledgement flag, all the same as we just talked about when we were doing a donation. And again, if you have a pledge card and you want to attach it to there, you can do it right there. Now, before we're finished here, one thing we need to do then is to determine, okay, here's how much he wants to pledge, but how does he want to pay for it? And that's where we go over here to schedule. So we're going to come over here and click on schedule. And you can see here that what we have is it's asking me, okay, when's the first installment date? When does he want to start paying for this? How often is he going to pay for it? And how much does he want his installments to be? So what I'm going to do is say his first installment isn't going to be until the 15th of February. So we're going to go ahead and select that. He wants to do this monthly, and you can see we have all the different types of frequencies here. We have weekly, every other week, twice a month, monthly, every other month. You can see them all there. We also have custom, and this is for somebody that wants to say, oh, I'm going to pay, you know, $200 this month, and I'm going to skip a month, and I'm going to pay $400 and skip a month. Anyway, those types of situations, or maybe it's somebody that has seasonal employment, so they only make their payments during a certain amount of time. So again, pretty much all of them there. But to get this pledge on the books, I'm going to go ahead and do monthly. And then Peter wants to pay $100 a month. So I'm going to go ahead and type this in. Now again, remember that if I have the credit card set up, it's going to take the $100 payment from his credit card, or we're just going to wait for that $100 check to show up. Now, what I'm going to do is once I've got my information, I'm going to generate my installments. And you can see over here that it shows me a schedule here. And he's going to have 20 installments at $100 a piece. And you can see this payment will be satisfied by September 15th of 2021. So you can see that's how that's going to look. And so, okay, once we got our pledge in there, we can go ahead and click Save. Now, once we click Save, you can see that now Peter has his donation and his pledge. Now, let's say that Peter wants to pay on this pledge. We get the check in the mail, hot dog, he's paid his first payment. So there's a couple things you can do. If you're not sure if he has a pledge or not, if you come up here and do, let's add a new donation, you can see that now Bloomerang is going to say, hey, hold on, he's got a pledge. Do you want this check to go toward that pledge or no? It's a new donation. We're going to do it that way. So that's one way to pay it. You would just simply click here, and then you can see that when I do this, that you would go ahead and create the pledge payment. Click that. And you would see that now, only thing I have to enter in is the amount, and this is in case he sent a different amount than what the schedule said. But notice the fund campaign, the appeal, all of this is already filled in for you. I'm going to check the check area again. Acknowledged is there. If you have entered on the main pledge a tribute or a soft credit or something like that, it will carry over to this payment as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click Save. All right, so that's how you do a payment. Or what you can also do, like I said, is you can just go to the original pledge transaction, which is right here, and you can also make a payment right here if you want to as well. So there are two spots to do it. Just from up here, just select New Donation and select the pledge, or you can do it here under the actual pledge and do a new payment. Now, what I'm going to do is we also have something else that Bloomerang has that can help you kind of manage your payments and donations that come in. How many of you have ever gotten a situation where somebody sends in a check and says, okay, I want half of it to go to this fund, I want half of it to go to another fund, or I want half of it to go to this tribute and the other half here. Or even better yet, I want half of this check to pay on my pledge payment and I want the other half just to be a donation. So Bloomerang has what we call split payments that you can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to the donation screen and I'm going to select a new donation. Okay. Now here you can see that it's asking me again, do I want to pay the pledge installment? And I'm going to say no. In this case, I just want to do a new donation. So we're going to go ahead and select that. Now, once we're on the new donation screen, you can see that if we come over here to Actions and click the drop-down arrow, we have a chance to do a split payment, okay? So what I'm going to do is select Split Payment, all right? So now you can see that Bloomerang is asking me, okay, how much was the payment? And meaning payment could be a donation or pledge payment or a combination of both. So I'm going to say this check that Peter sent us today is actually for $200. Okay, so we're going to type that in. And once we type in the $200, you can see that's the total of the check that we received. Now, the first part of the split, Peter's just going to make an outright, just plain old donation. So we're going to go ahead here and we're going to type in $100. And we're going to come down here and say the fund goes to just the general operating. Again, I'm going to say this is part of my annual campaign, and this was just a general appeal. Okay. Then I'm going to click on to add a split. So we're going to go ahead and add another split here. Now notice when we go to add the split, it comes up and says, okay, now you can take this $200, and we've already got $100 of it scheduled and earmarked for a donation. But what do you want to do with the other $100? So here it's saying, do you want to add it as a new donation, or do you want to take it and add it as a pledge payment? Because you've got a $100 payment that you can make. So I'm going to say Peter's going to pay ahead here, and he says, yeah, I want that to go on my pledge. So he's going to pay that other part of the installment on his pledge payment, okay? Now, he could have very easily gone in and taken the amount to be all just a regular donation. But again, you would come down here, you would put in now the $100 it's going to his pledge payment. And if you notice, it's now showing, again, the same endowment and pledge information that we saw before. Okay. Now, you can have more than 2 splits. You notice there's a plus sign there. I believe that the limit is 10. Hopefully nobody will do that, but again, you could have somebody that might want to split it out 10 different ways. If it's a big check, maybe they would. But you can certainly go in and add, additional more than 2 splits if you need to. And you can also remove a split. If you decide you've got this here and you think, oops, this isn't the one I wanted, you can remove it and then add another one if you want to go back and do the donation, let's say. So once I have this new split already added in, notice that I can go in and say save here. Okay, and now what I need, I forgot to choose my payment method. I'm going to say it was a check. There we go. So we're going to go here and do save. And now you can see that on the timeline, the way it shows up is it shows the split payment, and then it also shows the 2 parts of that split payment. Okay, and like I said, you can split just about anything you want, because if you go into the new donation and you add in, let me just do another donation here. Just to show you the split, I'll just put another $100 in here. But again, if I go into my actions and do a split payment, like I said, you can do on the new donation, you can split between tributes as well. You can also split between your funds, because again, if you add another split and you do another donation, then all you would have the 2 places for each split. And then you can choose whatever fund, campaign, or appeal you want for that split, along with any a new tribute that you want. So you can split just about anything that you need there. Okay? So that's how you do a split transaction. And like I said, it can be even between donations and pledge payments, or recurring donations as well. You can do that. So that's how you would do it. Now, I'm going to go back to Pete's timeline, because we can see some things are starting to happen here. And I'm currently looking at the highlight view of the timeline. And what you can see here is it's starting to show some information for me, like when was this first donation? When was this second donation? If I want to go in and edit any of this information, all I have to do is click on whatever part of the transaction, like whatever transaction I want to edit. I just click on it and you'll see it opens you right back up to where you can go in and change like a date or something like that that you need to do. Okay? Now, the last type of transaction that I want to show you is something that's called a recurring donation. And I kind of think that, to me, the recurring donations are, I see more of these sometimes than I see pledges these days. What the recurring donation does, in Peter's pledge, he said that he wants to pay $2,000. That's kind of his finish line for how much he pays. And he's going to pay X number of dollars a month until he reaches $2,000, and then his pledge is satisfied. But what we're going to do in this case is we're going to say, I just want to pay $50 a month until I tell you to stop, okay? Now, again, I wish I could be the type of person that could just open up my checkbook or hand you my credit card and say, hey, take $1,000 out of there for your organization. But unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. But I certainly could say, hey, take $50 a month out. And that way you can feel, especially for your donors that say, oh, I really just don't have, the means to do that. You can talk to them about recurring donations, because I think this is something where, again, it's going to add up and it's not going to be as painful as just a one-time gift for that particular amount. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to say that he wants to take, let's just say 25 just to show it here, $25 here for his recurring donation. This is going to go to the food pantry. Let's say he wants that to go to the food pantry. Again, I'm going to add this toward 2020. And I'm also going to say that this time the appeal was, let's say he came to the Polar Bear Dive, and it was the proceeds of that went to our food pantry. So he's decided he wants to give recurringly to that. So now what you do is you hop over here to where it says auto payment method. Again, a recurring donation can also be a check. If they're going to say they're going to become a monthly donor and send you a check every month, you would click none. But if he gives you his credit card, you know, you would go ahead and enter in the credit card information, choose your processor here, and Bloomerang will take that credit card payment every month. I know there are a couple of organizations. I don't give much, but at least I know that I give something every month to my favorite organizations, and they have my credit card. And it's sort of like I don't even feel it because I just know it's there and it comes off, and I don't have to worry about it. And a lot of times, like I said, people will almost forget about it, and you keep getting that recurring income coming in. So big fan of recurring donations. But anyway, then once we have this set up, all we have to do is come over here and tell Bloomerang, okay, when do we want the first payment to start? And Pete's going to say, oh, just start it today. That'll be fine. Or you can pick a day whenever you want that particular recurring donation to start. If you started on the 24th, that means every month on the 24th, it's going to take it out. Or depending on the frequency that you choose, you know, it may take it once a week, which means every Friday it would take it. And so on and so forth here, depending on what you want to do. I'm going to go in here and say he's still going to do this monthly on the 24th. And I'm going to leave the end date blank because, again, he says, keep taking that $25 out until I tell you to quit. So I'm going to leave the end date blank. I'm not going to put anything there. Unless he specifies, I can only do this for 6 months or I can only do this for 12 months or whatever, then you could put an end date in there. But again, you have the ability to choose to soft credit these gifts back to somebody and to add them as a tribute to somebody if you would like to do that. And the acknowledgement information that I described earlier works the exact same way. So again, once we have this set up with the new recurring donation, we're just going to go ahead and click Save. And for that part, you can see there's the recurring donation schedule set up for today. And he is now ready to start giving his $25 a month. Okay, so this really talks about all of the different types of monetary transactions that we can enter into Bloomerang. And you know, folks, the good news is that every one of these different types of transactions that we have, you're able to report on. You can filter on them. Any of these fields that you saw, campaign, fund, appeal, on your pledges, who's in arrears, past due amounts, you know, all kinds of things. What's the balance? Who has an open pledge? All of this information that you are entering into the timeline is something then later you can report on. You can also include it in your thank you letters when you're doing that as well. So very important to know to get the information in here so that you can successfully then be able to get it out when you start reporting and doing your thank you letters. Okay? All right, big deep breath. We're going to change and we're going to shift gears a little bit here, and we're now going to start talking about the non-monetary things that you can enter onto the timeline. Now, a lot of you out there might be either executive directors or major gift officers, or you have a portfolio of people that you work with and that you are responsible for contacting and keeping in touch with. And Bloomerang has a really great way for you to do that, and that is with our interactions. So I'm going to go ahead and select New Interaction. Now, I briefly mentioned interactions when we were talking about acknowledgments. Bloomerang will do mass interactions for you. Like, for example, if I'm generating my thank you letters out of Bloomerang, which again, letters are over here on the menu. When I'm generating my thank you letter, Bloomerang, without me having to do anything, will create for me an interaction that will have the date, the subject of the interaction, what the purpose was, the channel, and then, you know, is there any other information that I want to put on this particular interaction? Now, we can do that, like I said, Bloomerang can do that for you on any letter. Sorry about that. You don't want to worry that you would lose track of that letter. You would have that on there. Not only does it do letters, but it also does recurring donations. You can do that as, emails, mass emails. You can send those out. And with the mass email, you can go out and it will also create an interaction to tell you that that email was sent. The interaction on the mass email is amazing because what it does, it has all kinds of information that it tracks, like did they open it? Was it marked as spam? Did they actually receive it? If they didn't receive it, there's a reason why they didn't receive it. There's all kinds of great stuff on that interaction that, again, you can report on if you need to. So again, lots of automatic interactions that happen. But what I want to show you are for those one-on-one situations, how you can use an interaction as well. So I'm going to say that, you know, Peter is really fired up about this organization, and Tony's got him all fired up. Tony's a board member. So now Peter has decided that he'd like to know, what do I have to do if I wanted to become a board member of the organization? So I'm going to say that Peter sent me an email today asking me what all would it take for me to become a board member to this organization. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that, so you don't have to watch me type, the subject was discussing board membership. And I could just put a little note down here that said, you know, sent email asking about the board. All right, so you can put anything in there you want. Now, up here under purpose, you can see that we can go down and select what's the reason for this interaction. So when Bloomerang does it and it's a thank you letter, Bloomerang will mark the purpose as an acknowledgement. If it's anything else, like if it happens to be a newsletter or, you know, a receipt or a solicitation letter, Bloomerang, you will be able to mark that when you're doing your letters, and it will go ahead and create that on the interaction. So I'm just going to say that this is cultivation. We're just kind of working with Peter here, and he's interested in being a board member. Now, the channel that he used, you can see there we have them all, email, in-person, mail, mass email, even text messages on here. We're going to say that he emailed us. So I'm going to go ahead and put email on here. And then the next field is initiated by constituent. Now, this is really important because initiated by constituent means Peter did this. Peter actually was the one that said, hey, I'm contacting you. So, you know, a constituent actually taking time to contact us is, I think, a very important bit of information to keep. So I'm going to mark this as initiated by constituent. So I know that I didn't email him talking about the board. He emailed me. So I'm going to go ahead and select initiated by constituent. Okay? And so I'm going to go ahead again, if I have any custom fields down here that I want to include, I can. This is also where you can keep track of your event information. Initiated by constituent would be that they came, so you want to make sure that that gets included on that engagement level. Also, same way with events or volunteer hours. If they volunteer with you, you can create a set of volunteer fields here, put in the number of hours, what project they worked with, what activity did they do, and again, if you mark it as initiated by constituent, it will count on their engagement level. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save here, okay? So like I said, there are a million uses for the interaction, and that's what this little conversation bubble designates, is that it's an interaction. Like I said, you're going to get them automatically from Bloomerang on some of your mass processes that you do, but you can also individualize these, especially, like I said, if you're the executive director or if you're the development director and you're recruiting people for the board or you're talking to people about major gifts, you can enter this and use this as your contact management database as well for doing that type of information. All right, so that's the interaction. The next thing I have here is the new, we're going to skip tasks, we're going to do that at the end, but we got new note here. This is easy as it can be. I call this an electronic sticky note, okay? Peter told you what university he went to. He attended Indiana University. So we're going to put that he attended IU here. This could be anything. Maybe the name of his family members. This could be something that you don't really want to set up a custom field for this information, but it's just nice to have. Like if I'm reviewing his account, it's just really nice to have so that you can look at his account before you go out and talk to him and say, oh, I have to mention how IU's doing so far in basketball or something like that, because you know that he attended that university. So again, you know, your potential is unlimited here as to what you want to put on this note. And again, this is just for your purpose only. Some people use the note area to track grants. This is just a little more expanded use of the notes, because you don't really want to put any of this information in as a donation because you haven't gotten the money yet. and you would, of course, enter that in as a donation when the grant money came in. But as you're working on the grant, you have deadlines you have to meet, and there are application deadlines and submission dates, and how much did you ask for, and all of that. So you can track information like this on the note as well. But that's really all I'm going to put on this, and I'm just going to go up here and click Save. All right, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to do the last thing on our list that we haven't talked about, which is the task. Now, interactions usually talk about things that have happened, phone calls, things like that. A task is something that I want to plan for the future. So I know that Peter's really excited. I want to make sure that he is excited for the long term and that he's just not fired up right this minute. I kind of want to meet him personally to see what's going on. Of course, to thank him for all the activity that he's given us lately. So I want to take Peter to lunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here on my due date, and I'm going to say that next Friday I have set a lunch date with Peter. So I'm going to go ahead and call my subject here, the lunch meeting. Okay, and I just want to thank him and see how, how serious is he? And let's see, to scope out interest. Because again, if this is something that, he's maybe only going to be in town for a short period of time or something, we just want to see what his interest really is. So you can see that this is my login ID here. So I would assign this to myself if I wanted to, or anybody else that has been set up as a user in my database. I could assign it to them. So let's say, I want Bruce to take him out to lunch. Bruce is my person that is on the committee that looks for board recruits. So maybe I want to put this on Bruce's calendar. So I could do that if I wanted to. Or I could just keep it on mine, which is what I'm going to do for this. And then the purpose here of this is, again, impact cultivation. We're still trying to determine, how interested is he. Or again, if we consider the board as a volunteer activity, you could do that as well. But in this case, since it's in the early stages, I'm going to say impact cultivation. And the channel is going to be in person. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Save. All right? And once I click Save, I want to go back now to my dashboard, because once I select the dashboard, you can see that now I have a new task, okay? And it's due soon, okay? Also have some tasks that are past due here, as you can see. These are all of the tasks for the entire organization. If I just want to see my task, I can come up here and click, and you can see that there is my task that next Friday, I'm going to go to lunch with Peter. Now, if I want to see all tasks, I can do that as well. So you can see again, now I'm looking at all of those other tasks. The ones in pink are past due, and then the ones here, you can see here is my up-to-date one. And you can see that these are the constituents, and these are the people that have been assigned these particular tasks. So it looks like I need to scare up some interest here on these guys to see where they are with this information, okay? So that's how you would do your tasks. Now, let's say that the time has come, going back to the dashboard. I just got back to my desk from talking to Peter, and everything went really well, so I want to update my task now. So I would come here, I would click on this to update the task, and I can just click on the task, which takes me right back to Peter's timeline here, into the task, and I can either mark it as completed. Yep, we had lunch. It was great. Maybe I think, we had lunch. I was right. He's not really all that committed just yet. I'm just going to mark it as a complete task. That's great. But if this is something that I really feel like I want to save because I think Peter in the long term is going to be fine, I can turn it into an interaction. So again, this is something I actually did as opposed to something that's in the future. Now I've done it, and I want to save this as an interaction. So I can do that. I can also put the completed date in for the date that we had the lunch. I'm going to say OK there. And now you can see that that task is gone. But if I go back to Peter's timeline, that task will now be showing as an interaction. And speaking of Peter, I want to go back to Peter. We're going to go back into his record because I want to give you a look now at the summary screen. Now remember when we started the class that this was cold, Nothing was going on. And now see, he's had this real peak of activity going on here. And so now, because of all of this activity in a short period of time, he is showing now as hot on the engagement level. Again, just like anything else, you can report on this. You can say, give me everybody out of my database that is either hot or on fire, or by the same token, give me everybody who's cold and cool if you want to send a particular letter to those folks as well. So as you saw, going through and adding all of that information onto the timeline is something that I think is very important and really has some good effects that you can just look at here and see that, yep, Peter's he's really hot. He's really somebody that's engaged. You can see the time of his engagement here by the little summary on screen. You can see that also now, if I go back into his timeline, you can see that here is the lunch meeting that has now been turned into an interaction. Here's the note that shows that he attended IU, his email that that he emailed us, and then of course you can see all of the donations that we did. Okay? All right, everybody. Well, that's all I have from you today. Lots of information for you. This session is also available on recording. So if there is someone that you think, boy, I wish this person from my organization could have seen this class, you can always go to the little icon up here, which is the help section. If you go to our help and videos section, you'll be able to see that it brings you here to the landing page for help and videos. If you scroll down, you will get to the section on the Bloomerang Academy. And if you get to the Bloomerang Academy, you can see that here is the Bloomerang Academy adding and editing timeline session and a lot of other great sessions that you can go through as well. These are all recorded sessions. You can also find and search for articles that are help articles if you might need them. So again, help and videos is a great place to get some additional information on using Bloomerang to the best of its ability. So again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day. I hope all of you have a great week and have a great day. And thanks again for coming. And hopefully I'll see you in another session sometime soon. Thank everyone. Bye-bye.